Welcome to the Undiscovered Metric, where each month we interview industry leaders and explore how to measure what matters and stay ahead of the trends shaping the marketing future. I'm your host, Ira, and today we're joined by Vincent Spread, Global Chief Product Officer at Kinesso IPG Mediabrands, and we're going to be talking about AI. In particular, how conversational and agentic AI are changing the way marketers work. Vincent, welcome to the podcast. Hope you're doing well. Before we start off, could you briefly introduce yourself and just talk a little bit more about your background?
Sure. Hi, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm Vincent. I've been at IPG now for 4 years. Started at Reprise Digital at that time as Chief AI Officer, and then more recently, over the past 2 years, kind of migrated to the product side of things as AI is becoming much more of basically a foundation of all the products we're building across IPG.
Thank you. You sound like a very exciting guest to be having today because you work on the border of product and at the same time in the marketing world. So let's dive in. Let's talk all things about marketing, AI, product, whatnot. So of course, AI has been out there for a while, right? And in your experience, how are marketers using AI in their data operations today? More specifically, how is conversational and or agentic AI being used in marketing operations?
Well, the way I would look at it is maybe we start by kind of defining conversational versus agentic AI, right? And so how I see it is basically conversational AI is kind of the front end. So that's your natural language input output, the way you interact with an AI model. And then agentic AI is basically the back end. That's about autonomous workflows, right? So basically the conversational AI is how you talk to the AI, and agentic AI is how the agents talk to themselves. And you can bolt either one on the other, right? You can have a conversational AI agent with a traditional kind of hard-coded business logic underneath, or you can have a traditional kind of product front-end user interface with an agentic workflow under the hood, right? When it comes to using those capabilities in a business context, of course, you have to think about, legal indemnification, privacy, all of that. And that's why most companies, I would say, kind of start building their own, right? And so at IPG, we built something we call AI Console, and it's basically your ChatGPT for business, right? And so that's where our media planners, our strategists, our activation crafts, our creative agencies can all go into that AI console. And not only they have their chat interface and their image generation and all the things you would typically expect, but they would also build their own AI agents. And that's where you actually see, like, over the past months, we had about 6,000 special purpose agents created by planners, by strategies, by audience experts that just kind of define their own agents, write their own system prompt to have a ChatGPT-like interface to help them with a very kind of special purpose task. And so overall, we see I would say that across the whole of Interact, which is our media platform at IPG, AI Console is the most widely used one. We have about 20,000 users, monthly active users there, people building agents, using our private marketplace to share agents with each other, with the teams, different teams, with clients. What gets me a bit more interested actually, or excited is the agentic part, right? Where what you're seeing is even if front ends, like user interfaces of products, stay the way they are, you see that a lot of the business logic that used to be hard coded is being replaced more and more by agents, right? So you have agents that can do like brief ingestion. So you have a client brief, the brief gets ingested by an agent or multiple agents working together to then read through 40 pages, spit out an ideal customer profile, spit out different personas, spit out a total addressable market estimate in just a few minutes time, right? And so the front end is still a traditional user interface. So you wouldn't even know that you're dealing with AI. But under the hood, there are like hugely flexible AI agents working together on, channel allocation, creative QA, ops automation, these type of things. And that's where I think there is a huge opportunity, because the strategy stays human. It's still people that are, leveraging those tools, but the execution of that strategy starts scaling like software, right? Instead of having a purely FTE-driven business, you now kind of start driving the execution of what we're doing the way you would kind of scale a software as a service business.
Right. Well, that's exciting because it sounds like, that type of conversation a year ago or 2 years ago would be almost like a nice to have, or this is what we think it's going to be about, right? And today, here we are sitting saying that's already happening and that's already out there, and that's how businesses are transformed. And when I think about, the access to conversational AI, agentic AI, mix of those, you name it, you say it, of course, there's a huge self-serve element, right? I can log in and I can chat and I can ask AI to act on data or act on insights. But how do you think it will change, or it is changing, the relationship that marketers and data analysts are having these days?
100%, right? So AI, especially the conversational part of it, is democratizing data access. I, I think the way you should look at it is that today every marketeer has like a 24/7 junior analyst in their back pocket, right?
Right.
That doesn't mean that analytics or analysts as a craft becomes less important. On the contrary, I think analysts level up to like sense makers, model builders instead of dashboard butlers, right? It's not just about building dashboards and finding insights. So if you think about more traditional statistics and machine learning approaches like market mix modeling, multi-touch attribution, propensity modeling, all of that is still happening, right? And there are still analysts with deep expertise building out those models. But then when it comes to running those models, interpreting them, running different scenarios, tying it back, tying the outcomes of those models back to your original audience definition or your performance, and getting to those insights, that is now something that I think for the first time ever can be done by the domain experts, right? By the marketeers themselves. That bring a lot of kind of client knowledge and experience that maybe the analyst doesn't have. So
Correct. And just the ability to go deeper into details, or actually focus on, things that matter, or strategic ways of doing things instead of just, you
exactly.
know, dealing with the basic requests. Of course, everybody wants to avoid mistakes, right? And we hear garbage in, garbage out all the time. That phrase is so commonly used. And do you think, do you see that actually playing out in practice? How should team respond to such situations? And then do you see any specific common challenges that marketers are facing today when they're using conversational, agentic, mix of those AI possibilities to support their data operations?
I think what's important to realize as an organization, like when getting ready or when adopting the whole AI journey, is that what I like to say is, if you couldn't automate without AI, you cannot automate with AI, right? AI is not a solution here. The solution is something that most companies have gone through over the past years, which is basically digital transformation, right? So yes, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have your taxonomy in order, if you don't have your data lineage in order, if you don't have your SLA documents in one place, if nothing is standardized on the data hygiene side, then AI is only gonna increase the chaos that you already have, right? So I think that's a really important piece. You start by really building out the foundations, building out the standardization on the data and product side before even kind of thinking about leveraging AI. That's the data and data engineering and software engineering side of it. I think as important is kind of process entropy, like automating your non-standardized workflows, right? Because also there, if your workflows are not standardized, then adding AI on top of it, and especially letting your users do whatever they want with their own agent, just scales chaos, right?
Oh, yeah, totally agree. And it feels like, the talk that I'm facing these days, or that I'm witnessing these days, is that AI is actually the co-pilot rather than autopilot, right? You still need to have human interaction. You still need to monitor it. You still need to understand what and why you're using it for. So what do you think? What does that actually mean in practice for marketers? How do you strike the right balance between automation and human oversight when using AI?
Yeah, I think that's very much true. That there is this quote from Andrew Ng, like one of the godfathers of deep learning, where and that quote has been kind of reused and abused and adapted a lot over time. But the original quote was, "AI won't take your job, but someone using AI will," right? And so in the marketing context, a lot of people start saying AI won't replace marketeers, but marketeers who use AI will replace marketeers who don't. And I think that's very much true. Again, AI is not a solution. You still need people. And one technical reason for that is that even with a stronger and stronger models available today, hallucinations are still a fact, right? And actually, more recent research has shown that strong models hallucinate even more confidently than the weaker models in the past, meaning that the output always needs to be double checked, right? Like if there's no human in the loop and you blindly trust the output of a model, you just know that 90% of that model is very valuable and very true, but then 10% is probably just not grounded in reality. And then as your infrastructure becomes more more mature and you start adding in grounding, like grounding in search. So you have AI agents that can actually search the web. You ground it in RAG, like retrieval augmented generation, so that your documents can be queried. Then your model starts kind of adding references and citations to its responses. And that again creates this kind of fake sense of trustworthiness, right? So I think it's super important to realize and that's where training of the workforce also comes in, right? It's super important to realize the strengths, but definitely also today's dangers and weaknesses of those models. And so in that sense, yes, AI can definitely help with a lot of groundwork, with a lot of automation, but that human oversight is still crucial. You wouldn't want to have kind of a closed loop system where your AI agents automatically put something, put a campaign live, adapts the audience, adapts the creative, and keeps iterating itself. You really need that kind of human gateway in the middle.
Yeah, sounds absolutely reasonable to me. We've talked a lot about data foundations, right? And making sure that you actually start off with the correct setting, with the correct things in place before you ask AI to act upon those things, or before you start using it properly in marketing or in data analytics. And when it comes to implementing conversational AI, do you see any specific pitfalls? Do you see things like implementing it without having the proper architectural strategy, or maybe using it not correctly because the foundations were not set up right? And have you actually witnessed any of those when setting up things at IPG?
Yeah, definitely. And well, I would say especially outside of IPG, the 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 danger or the risk when, especially as a kind of as a product person or a business person, when dealing with AI is to fall kind of in the trap of AI theater, right? You see a lot of companies building slick AI demos. It's not hard to just like hack together a really impressive little AI tool, do a press release, and then get close to zero downstream adoption, right? There's a big difference between creating a fancy shiny object and an AI MVP versus actually driving value to the business, driving adoption and using it in the right place. So I think that's one big risk. A second risk that I see today is as soon as you start letting the whole organizations create their own agents, you have a lot of efficiency gains. Yes, you also create this kind of, or you have the risk of creating shadow pipelines where analysts all over the place, export CSVs into a ChatGPT-like interface. Governance just kind of evaporates. So again, back to the basics. You need to make sure you have built a platform around observability, around governance, around legal indemnification, making sure that people still have all the freedom they need to do whatever they want, but that there is that kind of underlying platform that takes care of all the governance. And that's where we can learn from traditional software, right? Where this is not something new. When, let's say, back in the days when Microsoft Excel started supporting macros and Visual Basic, you saw something similar, right? Where different teams started building their own little IT solutions. And there was no governance. There is no kind of central layer. And then over time, we learned from that and changed the way how to handle that. So the same is true with this newer technology, which is Gen AI, right? And then a third one, I would say, and maybe that's the biggest kind of opportunity cost here is not training people, right? Because it's great to building products around AI, but if you think about where are the biggest gains, it's really the workforce. If you imagine again, we all use ChatGPT every day for little things, right? So, or a ChatGPT-like solution. So imagine that you have a 10,000 person organization and everyone saves maybe 10 minutes a day, using a Gen AI agent. Well, that is 200 person years a year, right? And so that's either a big budget or a cost saving, or it's basically just kind of increasing your workforce without an extra cost. So I think that's something that's often overlooked, right? Instead of creating these shiny objects, let's just train our people on how to use AI, how to leverage those. And that's not just marketeers. That is again like HR, legal, finance, every single division of your organization.
Correct. No, I think it's so important to understand that, the use case here is not limited to marketing people, right? It's not even limited to marketing and data people. It can actually transform the whole business. And the way you put it in terms of the financial benefits, in terms of the comparison that you've just made with Microsoft, that just sounds so right. And so, yeah, so right into where it needs to be in terms of timing and in terms of place. When it comes to, taking just a little bit of a futuristic look at it, what are you excited the most in terms of, the role of the conversational AI? What type of, what type of a use case could there be in the future of marketing, of data analytics, and what excites you the most about it?
When it comes to adoption in production, we're still kind of at the early days, right? And so because of that, we're all very focused. Everyone is focused today on, I would say, cost reduction through automation, workflow automation, and or quality increase, right? Make less mistakes, go faster, basically, do more in a better way with potentially, less effort. But that is just the beginning. I think where we're heading to is basically kind of going from focusing on efficiency to getting superpowers, going beyond what humans can do today. And what I mean by that is, well, think about, again, you have 10,000 people. Imagine every one of those employees has access to 100 collaborating expert agents, right? That draft for them automatically a media plan, hand it over to the next agent who does the, researches the financials, hands it over to the next agent who does the brand positioning and sentiment analysis, and they keep iterating and they, crawl the web and find whatever. This is not far into the future, right? Those things are being built today, but I think in the next few years, we're gonna see that we're all getting access to kind of a swarm or an army of agents that do for us in minutes what we would spend weeks or months on with a whole team. So I think that's super exciting. It's gonna lift us all up. I would also say though that although that sounds exciting and you think like, wow, that's fantastic for IPG, it's not IPG only, right? These models are becoming commodity, right? So longer term, AI is not a differentiator here. We're all working with the same tools. We're all building the exact same thing, and we're all gonna elevate ourselves in that way. And that's interesting to think about, right? Because a lot of companies are kind of rightfully so jumping on the AI bandwagon, but thinking that this is gonna be our differentiator. Well, it's not, right? All your competitors are doing the same thing. So I think what is gonna be the differentiator? Well, it's gonna be culture. It's gonna be proprietary data that you might have as an organization. It's going to be the ability to operationalize change, right? To kind of quickly adapt to a new world. That is going to define how you as an organization differentiate, and AI is going to enable you to focus on that, right? But AI itself is not going to be the long-term differentiation.
True. No, we're still coming back to the fact that there's a human factor involved, and the human factor is not going anywhere, but actually enriching and enhancing our AI experience, and what we can actually do with AI in the future. Vincent, in terms of talking about other things AI, right? We've just covered AI, be that conversational or agentic, in detail. So I'd like to ask you a couple of questions that are more of a general marketing focus, general experience focus. In your experience, what are those overlooked metrics that marketers should pay attention to?
Coming from a very much a technical and engineering background, I would say a metric that is often overlooked to me is not per se a marketing metric, but it's what I would call time to insights. And time to insights basically refers to the speed at which your data is converted into actionable knowledge, and then is actually used to drive or improve your marketing strategies, your decisions. And the reason I would say that's so important or often overlooked is, well, if all marketeers across all brands and all holdcos have access to the same data and the same technology, we all focus on clicks and impressions and conversions, and then what actually matters is how quickly we can leverage that data to personalize and customize your strategy and execution. And that's again what where AI comes in. Like we're moving from a world where the traditional media approach would be, a multi-month process where you start with audience creation, then you create your strategic media plan, and you create your tactical media plan, and then you activate those campaigns, and then you measure a very kind of linear waterfall like approach. We're going from that to something that is much shorter lived and much more adaptive, right? Where that time to insight becomes crucial to leverage AI to, optimize your audiences, optimize your creative, optimize your campaign setup, and just constantly adapt to the world. So yeah, time to insight.
Yeah, that's a good one. I've had a lot of internal conversations lately in the light of, our upcoming data conversations product release. And I really loved somebody, one of my colleagues, I believe, telling me the static dashboards are showing you what was,
Exactly.
as opposed to the conversational AI, agentic AI showing you what is. And you don't have to wait on those insights for the data analyst to come back to you, or the report to be updated, or the data to be cleaned up. And I think that's also, just to echo what you have just said, that's probably one of the most exciting and overlooked things. Make sure that
Exactly.
insights are actually instant and timely.
Yeah, plus it's also about getting to the right insights, right? So yeah, a typical market mix model or typical dashboard will show you maybe that your campaigns didn't perform well on platform A, or that you should shift budget from platform A to platform B. What it doesn't easily or automatically tell you is why that is, right? How does this now correlate to my audience definition? How does it correlate to macroeconomic environment, to things that are changing? So like that those insights and then the adaptability, being able to act on that quickly is becoming so crucial.
And another one on the topic of data people and marketing people working together. What mistakes do marketers make when putting their data strategy together? Have you witnessed any?
Yes, well, so this is again kind of me coming from a product and engineering background. Something that I keep repeating over and over, which is the marketing and agency world is a bit insane in the way we customize for every single client, right? Over customization for a client is not to the benefit of the client. The client thinks they want customization, right? But what they're actually asking for is personalized outcomes. They don't want us to reforge the hammer each time. That's what we decide to do, right? And so when a client comes in and says like, I'm special, my brand is special, I need a custom approach. And the marketeer then interpret that as having to build a custom solution. That basically again hinders that foundational layer of standardization, right? To really leverage AI. So I think what the client is asking you to do is build this super personalized and customized outcome for them. And to really do that, you can only do that if you have kind of a standard way of working, right? So focus on productization versus services and solutions. And I think that is a big mistake. I see across the board, right? In many kind of agencies and companies, I see teams spinning up custom data warehouses just specifically for their client, building custom insights tools specifically for their client. And the strength of a holdco is actually that you have so many big clients that you can actually leverage the experience and the knowledge across those clients to build fundamental solutions that drive those personalized outcomes, right? So I would say like that's something that marketeers have to double down on, right? Standardize over and over again and try to tell your client a story on how that kind of foundational layer and that standardization is gonna deliver to them those tailored solutions versus reinventing the wheel over and over again.
That's a great insight. Thank you. As somebody who has to stay on top of marketing news, no matter your background, no matter your professional focus, what are your go-to resources for marketing news and trends these days?
I would say apart from like the typical media outlets and like Stretchery for macro takes and things like that, for me it's actually a lot of social media, and mostly Reddit and X, right? And the reason for that is just that for me personally, those are the places where I can find insights and discussions that are not per se mainstream or widely known and accepted yet. And so those are kind of the edges of social media in a way where it's still possible to learn something or to pick up on something before it hits mainstream media, and that kind of gives you a little bit of an edge when you're thinking about the product strategy roadmap.
Thank you, Vincent, for sharing your insights today. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Appreciate your time, your expertise. And to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, comment, rate the podcast, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Till next time, keep exploring those undiscovered metrics.